The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog is giving away $15 million in Best Ball Mania 5. Sign up the promo code SGPN to claim your first-time deposit up to $250 in bonus cash. Underdog Fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Rhythm has the best AI picks and projections, and they also have their college football product about to drop. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportscampodcast.com, rhythmsportscampodcast.com/RITHMM. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Wednesday night, roughly 11 p.m. Eastern Time on July 24th. I'm Rosso, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Should be a fun episode because it is time to get into the quarterfinals in Umag and in Kitzbuhel. To explain the actual schedule, I was going to cover Atlanta as well, but Atlanta is actually one round behind. They are currently in the round of 16, so we're not going to cover it. Instead, we'll probably cover the quarterfinals in Atlanta in the next episode. But for the sake of this episode, only going to cover the quarters in Kitzbuhel and Umag for Thursday. So before we get into any of the actual recap of the last before we get into any of the recap of last episode's picks and the preview for the matches on Thursday, do want to remind you once again to like, subscribe on YouTube. Also, remind don't forget to rate the podcast on Spotify or Apple. I know we've done well with the subscribers recently, closing in on 400. So hopefully you can help us out and help us get there. But so far, the reception's been good, and we've been cashing plays. So hopefully you've been cashing along with me. Besides that, if you are still listening to the podcast on Spotify or Apple, you can still show some support, leave a rating and a review. Also, a reminder, check out the SGPN merch store for Tennis Gambling Podcast merch. We have shirts, sweatshirts, and mugs. So if you want to support the show, we do have a lot of high-quality merchandise available for you at a very cheap price. And we also have a lot of featured shows for this week. We have the MLB show, a show that I'm also on, the MLB Gambling Podcast, which gives you all the picks you need to crush the MLB season. On top of that, the college football experience is very busy covering actual teams in the upcoming season, as they are covering 134 teams in depth, which is pretty crazy, but they've been working nonstop to get it done. So I recommend you checking that out as well. Subscribe wherever you do get your podcast, and subscribe to the SGPN app. Anyway, time to get into the actual recap of the episode that we just had. So, recapping the Lock and Dog picks. Overall, very good episode. Ended up sweeping. Ended up winning both. We had for the lock. We had to wait a couple days, though, because of bad weather. But eventually, the Opelka match did go under 26 games at minus 124. If you got it at 25.5, they got there too. At the end of the day, the only way you to lose 26 is 3 sets. I'll take the under on that every time. And Opelka was able to get a break in the first set, and then did not get broken in the entire match. Had a couple of chances to make it really sweat-free, as I believe he had 15-40, trying to get a break in the Kovacevic service game. Didn't convert, but eventually did convert on his first match point in the tiebreak. So either way, match ended up going under. Never really a sweat, except a little bit in the breaker, but not really. Either way, though, nice winner for the lock. For the dog, once again, Altmaier over 2.5 sets gets there, as we ended up having the over 2.5 sets between him and Gaston. Fun match, competitive match. Gaston outlasted him as he ended up winning in 3. Plus 135, though, nice price, so feels good to get back on track after losing a couple of plays to, once again, have a solid sweep in a response. So overall, can't complain. Solid there. Also, if you do follow the SGPN Discord server, which is free to enter, a reminder that we have a tennis server, and I do sometimes give out picks on the server. Give out Gaston to win the first set against Baena on Wednesday. That was about plus 116. So that ended up getting there too, as Gaston ended up winning the first set pretty handily. I think he was up 4-0 double break to start the set. And on top of that, on Twitter, I actually had a nice parlay. I hit a 46-1 parlay, so that felt pretty good. Made about 2K, which is definitely a nice Wednesday, and hopefully that carries over into Thursday. Now, for the actual recap of the matches on Wednesday. So going through the matches, I'll cover Atlanta as well, but starting off with Kitzbuhel. Fun match to start the day with Desir against Seaboth Wild, as Seaboth Wild came back from a set down as he won in 3. Echeverry ended up dropping out, but you ended up seeing Heidi fill in, and Hoffman did beat him in 3. Moreno beat Neumeier. Neumeier was coming off his first ever ATP win in the first round because Offner is an idiot, and Moreno ended up getting the job done in straight sets. Martinez, our boy, with the outright, ended up winning against Nagal, 7-5, 7-5 in the first round. I mean, in the last round that he played. Berrettini ended up beating Tabilo. I meant to say Martinez's first match of the event because he had a bye in the first round. Berrettini, though, continues his tiebreak streak, as he was able to beat Tabilo 7-6, 7-6. Guy's an absolute tiebreak machine. and he's really, really good. So let's put it that way. Berrettini's had some injuries, but when healthy, he's definitely top 10, top 15. And he looked great against Tabilo. So that was one thing that I did get wrong for the last episode. I had a decent read on some guys that I thought might be dropping out. I said Borges would drop out. I thought Rune would drop out. He did as well. I was wrong about Berrettini because I did think that Berrettini, after playing a full tournament last week, would potentially conserve his energy for the Olympics. That was actually my mistake because I didn't realize Berrettini was not on the Olympic roster. Because you kind of figure Berrettini being healthy is probably the second best Italian player in the world at this point, and he's on the roster. Now, I can't really criticize the decision because he's battled some injuries, and Italy did make the final of the Davis Cup last year, and they actually won. So I can't really criticize the decision, but I kind of just forgot that he wasn't on the roster. So apologies there if I accidentally swayed you because I thought Berrettini was on the Olympic team. Apologies there. Somebody did point that out to me in the comment section, so thank you for doing so, but I was wrong there. Still was concerned about the spot, though. He'd missed a lot of time, played Wimbledon, then he played a full tournament, and then I thought he maybe would come out rusty or skip the event. He's looked great. So Berrettini is definitely the guy to beat right now in the event, and he looked very good against Tabilo as he won in straight sets. As for the next match, you had Diaz Acosta beating Galan in 3. Fun match there. Baez did beat Tarante in straight sets. Tarante had a bye in the first round, though, basically, because team is god-awful, and he lost again comfortably. He's going to retire. They gave him a ceremony at the end of the match, but damn, team, it's just sad every time I watch him play. It is really, really sad, and Tarante killed him. So, yeah, team was a free win there for Tarante, and then he eventually lost to Baez into the next round, and Gaston did beat Baena. One common thing you want to keep in mind, though, which I did mention in the Discord and I mentioned on this show a couple of minutes ago, Baena first set, you might want to fade him. I don't want to say that he's exactly like Bublik, but recent form tells me Baena has been awful in first sets, and he has been able to come back, winning a couple of those matches in 3. But I think he's now lost 5 straight first sets. I think it's been really bad, and you got plus money if you took Gaston against him in the first set on Wednesday. So keep that in mind as well for that overall trend moving forward. Moving on, though, to Umag. You had a lot of straight set wins. In fact, all of them were straight set wins. You had Sarandolo beating Dodig. Nice win by Dodig there in the first round. Ended up seeing Sonego beat Moore. You saw Musetti beat Trungoliti. Off to a slow start, then he ended up picking up, and he kind of dominated from that point forward. Lajovic beat Kaboli, 7-6, 7-6. Very fun match there. Unlike the Berrettini-Tabilo 7-6, 7-6, though. Bunch of breaks. It just balanced out the breakers, but nice job by Lajovic, who's always dangerous on clay, no matter how old he is. You saw Mensik beat Darderi in straight sets, 6-4, 6-3. And the shocker of the day was based on the scoreline. Fognini, who was in good form in Wimbledon and even last week before losing to Tsitsipas, got absolutely curb stomped by Sang 6-1, 6-0. That was definitely the shock, at least based on the scoreline. One game in the entire match for Fognini, really? On clay? It's one thing to lose, but damn, you won one game. Yeah, so Sang killed Fognini. That was the shocker based on scoreline for the matches on Wednesday. As for Atlanta, you saw Purcell outlast O'Connell in 3. Opelka beat Kovacevic in straight sets. Martin got buried by Shang, lost 6-1, 6-1. You see him occasionally show up in wildcard spots for the U.S. portion or the North American portion of the season on hard court. He should probably switch sports. Martin's not very good, and Shang killed him. Bellucci beat Manarino in 3. Manarino's horrible couple months continue, and Rinderknech ended up beating Walton in a straight set. So not too much drama. The matches that were the most competitive were in Kitzbuhel. But once again, the main shocker was just Fognini getting destroyed based on scoreline. But nothing else to really recap from the Wednesday matches. Mentioned some of the withdrawals already with Borges and with Rune. Not a shock. I'm shocked Rune was even listed for the event because he got injured and he quit against Fees, and there was no way he was going to play this upcoming week. So not a shock there, and Borges won his first ever ATP title, and he might have gotten some champagne in his eyes. So he wanted to take the week off. Understandable. Point is, though, nothing too shocking, and hopefully we get some fun matches here for Thursday. Before we get into any of the actual quarterfinal matches, though, do want to remind you once again that we are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy because they just launched their Underdog Streaks. Hit your first 2 pick'em entries and then go streaking. If you win 11 straight, you can win 1,000 times your money. Plus, Best Ball Mania is live with $15 million in prizes. You can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. I'll probably use a bunch of points options for the Olympics for the upcoming, of course, men's basketball. Women's basketball probably should have some options too, so keep an eye out for that. I do think you'll be able to find a lot of value in those areas. Plus, if you want to go for baseball, I don't mind that as well. Sign up with the promo code SGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $2 bonus cash on a fantasy promo code SGPN. We are also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is back as a sponsor for the show. Mentioned them many times in the past, and they are a very solid ticket platform for you to use to get tickets, especially for baseball, because they are now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down closer to first pitch, and with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices used from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. A reminder that maybe in the past you have bought tickets to an event, you were excited, and you realized there's a pole in your way, some type of obstruction, and you can't actually see the action you paid for. That won't happen with this platform because they have an image of the seat views feature, which gives you a preview of the exact view you would be getting if you spent your money. So keep that in mind. Good way to avoid getting bad seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use code SGPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code SGPN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished recapping what happened on Wednesday. Now it's time for the preview of the Thursday matches. Reminder, we are not talking about Atlanta. We are going to save Atlanta for the next episode, but these are quarterfinal matches only. Keep that in mind. Starting off in Kitzbuhel, you have Hanfman taking on Seaboth Wild. Should be a fun matchup. Seaboth Wild's favorite at -119. Hanfman is -101. The over-under is 22.5. The spread is minus half a game for Seaboth Wild. And the over 2.5 sets is +130. They have some history on clay, and Hanfman's actually done quite well against Seaboth Wild in the past. I know that Seaboth Wild's a solid clay player, but he has been pretty streaky so far this season. Hanfman, though, is 2-1 lifetime. Faced off in 2022 most recent meeting, and he won in straight sets. Faced off in Montevideo in Uruguay in 2019, and he ended up seeing Seaboth Wild win in 3. Faced off in this event, though, in Kitzbuhel 6 years ago, and Hanfman did win in straight sets. So it is a bit dated. Point is, though, he has won 2 of the 3 clay meetings, but I do think that this match is going to be a marathon. I like the over in this one. We saw Hanfman beat Munar in the first round, solid win there, and then beating Heidi in 3. But I do think Seaboth Wild's dangerous, and he was able to beat Desir, who's still pretty solid on clay, in 3 sets. I see a competitive matchup here. I think that there would be some value in theory on Hanfman because he has beaten him here before, but he also has been in slightly better form recently. Entering the event, Seaboth Wild was not really in good form, and I thought about taking him actually as a potential long shot, but unfortunately, I just did not like his current form enough, and as a result, I passed. But he's looked fine. I think Hanfman's looked fine too. Give me the over. I see a bit of a marathon in this one. Moving on to the next match that we have for the Kitzbuhel card. You have Berrettini taking on Moreno. Now, Berrettini is a massive favorite, -660, give or take, and Moreno's around +480. For the spread, you have -4 for Berrettini, +4 for Moreno. Over-under in games is set at around 22 or 22.5. For the set spread, Berrettini in straight sets is -160, and Moreno to win a set is +130. Now, Moreno's been in good form, as he has dropped 0 sets so far in this event. However, his path has been an absolute joke. So Moreno right now is a wild card entry, and he's ranked 143rd in the world. His first 2 opponents in this event were ranked in the 200s. So point is, he's not really faced anybody worth a damn. Now he's against Berrettini, who looks very good against Kotov and very good against Tabilo. So I do have to at least point out that Berrettini is a massive step up in competition. He's won 7 straight matches. He's won 14 straight sets on clay. I can't really go against him. He's a tiebreak machine. He's a great server, and Moreno's really not a great server. I think Berrettini should get broken maybe 1 time max in the entire match, but he's been holding like crazy. The serve looks great, and the return game's still not amazing, but Moreno's not an amazing server by any means. I think Berrettini wins comfortably, maybe not as comfortably as the final against Hallis, but same idea. Just a massive talent differential here. Give me Berrettini to keep rolling here at around -160 in the straight set market. For the next match, you have a fun one between Diaz Acosta and Martinez. Diaz Acosta is around -118, and Martinez is around even money. For the actual over-under, you have 22.5 games. For the set over-under, you have 2.5. The over is around plus 120. Shop around, though. You can find a plus 130 onward. For the actual head-to-head meetings, they've been very competitive between these two players, as you have seen Martinez get the better of Diaz Acosta, but they faced off this year on clay back in Santiago in February, and you ended up seeing Martinez win that one in 3 sets. First 2 sets did go to breakers in that one as well. Faced off in Cordoba in 2020, and Martinez won that one in straight sets. Now, Diaz Acosta has been solid here, but he has dropped some sets. Dropped a set to Galan, and dropped a set to Coria. So not exactly in dominant form, but he has been good. And he also dropped a set to Gaston in Hamburg, dropped 2 sets actually to Gaston, ended up dropping 2 sets to Chapo in Madrid, dropped 2 sets to Tsitsipas in Barcelona, and he also dropped a set to Morozin. So if you're doing the math at home, that means that Diaz Acosta has actually lost at least 1 set, or I should say, I'll put it this way, each of his last 7 matches on clay have not ended in straight sets. So there's been a solid over 2.5 set run for Diaz Acosta, and I don't mind it. I like the over 2.5 sets here too. Martinez has been solid, but he did beat Nagal 7-5, 7-5. Nagal's pretty good on clay. I think he's more of a challenger level guy on clay personally, but the point is he was able to win that one. Still competitive though, 7-5, 7-5. I think you're going to see some ups and downs here. I will lean to Martinez. I picked him to win the event, but I do think that the over 2.5 sets has value. I found plus 135. I like that quite a bit. Give me the over in that one. And moving on to the last match for Kitzbuhel on Thursday, you have Gaston taking on Baez. Gaston is now one of my favorite players because he helped me cash a 46-1 parlay with the first set, and he also cashed us the dog in the last episode with the over 2.5 sets against Altmaier. Against Baez, though, in this one, Baez massive favorite, minus 240. You have Gaston around plus 200. For the spread, Baez minus 4, Gaston plus 4. You can find 3.5s, though, if you really want it. Besides that, though, you can find the over-under at 21.5 games. Over 2.5 sets is plus 145. Unders minus 175. Baez in straight sets is plus 115. Gaston to win a set is minus 145. Now, this match is actually a bit tricky because Gaston has been in good form recently, and he looked good against Baena. I thought he kind of dominated. Now, they faced off one time in their careers, was a next-gen final match, which is 1st to 4. It was on hardcore, toss it in the garbage. It was 3 years ago, doesn't mean anything, but I am at least going to mention it because it's the only head-to-head meeting they have. Now, Baez is defending champion, and he beat Tarante comfortably. I thought he looked really, really good in that Tarante match on Wednesday. Now, Gaston looked good too. Baena, though, is dropping sets left and right. I mentioned before he's dropped the first set in 5 straight matches. He's been very, I'd say, inconsistent in his matches, and Gaston, still not a great server. You could argue neither guy is. Gaston has a lot of finesse. Baez should be able to take control of most of these points. I think it's pretty fitting, though, that Gaston is a short French guy, because stylistically, he's very similar to Moutet. I think that they have a lot of similarities based on style of play, and they can create a lot of interesting rallies, and they can make their opponents uncomfortable with unpredictability with the drop shots and the lobs and all that fun stuff. Baez, though, I think is objectively the much better clay player, and I think that even though Gaston can win a set if Baez's forehand or backhand go awry, and Gaston is able to hit all his finesse shots, force Baez to move in a bit with the drop shots and maybe capitalize there. At the end of the day, though, defending champion, I think there's value on the minus 1.5 sets for Baez here at plus 115. I like Gaston. I think Gaston is fun, but I really do think that Baez on these particular courts in Kitzbühel is very comfortable, and I think that he's really, really good. So I'm going to go with Baez. I am a bit biased, though, because I gave him out to win the event. But he looked as good as I thought he'd look. Tarante, you could argue maybe it was because a team is so bad. I thought Tarante looked good, and you might remember he actually beat Rublev on clay last week. So it wasn't like he was in bad form. And Baez went through him like he was nothing. So I think Baez is the better player. I'd acknowledge that the win against Baena is good on paper, but I do think it might be a competitive straight sets. But if I'm looking for value, I can't take the value on the money line at minus 240. So I'm going to go with something instead. Give me Baez to win in straight sets at plus 115 as a relatively, I'd say, different pivot than what most people will probably tell you. Gaston maybe makes 1 set competitive, maybe a breaker, but I think Baez is just too solid on these courts, and I think that he's the better clay player. Moving on to Umag. So for the 4 matches here, you have Sonego taking on Cerundolo. Now, Cerundolo had some ups and downs in his last matchup. Did end up getting the job done in straight sets. A reminder, every single match ended in straight sets in Umag on Wednesday, so no drama whatsoever. As for Cerundolo, though, he ended up having some ups and downs against Dodig. He was mostly in control. A couple of service games were a bit iffy, but he eventually got the job done 1-6, 3-6, 4. Sonego, though, ended up getting the job done against Mueller. So good for him. He finally won back-to-back matches. Congratulations. I'm proud of you, Sonego. But for this one, looking at the head-to-head meetings, they have been competitive. Both meetings on hard court, though, both went to 3 sets. Sonego won in Vienna in 2023, and you also saw Sonego win in Miami in 2023. So it is a bit interesting to try to break down head-to-head meetings that have been competitive when this is on clay and the other ones were on hard court. I think Cerundolo is going to win, but I do think Sonego can make it interesting. It's mostly just not trusting Cerundolo, who I think is just an absolute head case as well. It's why I kind of stay away from him most of the time. I just don't trust him, and he has a lot of, let's just say, ups and downs over the course of matches. We saw it against Martinez last week. Won the first set 6-1. Then he lost the match. We see that all the time from Cerundolo. I don't mind the over in this one. Maybe the over 2.5 sets as well. I think Cerundolo is going to win, but I can't trust him. So I guess the value is going to be on the over in this one instead. Give me the over 2.5 sets at plus 135. Moving on to the next matchup, you have Rublev, who finally won a match. Congratulations. He's taking on Morozin. Morozin had a nice win, which was a little bit surprising, but he was able to get the job done in his match. For Rublev, though, he is obviously the big favorite, as he is around like minus 270, give or take, as he ended up beating Ugo. I'm trying to not butcher his name here. Ugo Carabelli in the first round. That was actually competitive. Both guys had a hard time serving, but eventually Rublev broke through at the end of the second set. As for Morozin, though, we know that he can be solid on clay, not known for being an amazing clay player, but he was able to beat Montero in straight sets. Good win there. And he beat Shevchenko in 3 sets in the first round. Rublev, I think, is going to win. You can make the argument Rublev needed to see one match go his way, kind of like a very good shooter in the middle of a bad game. You need to see the ball go through the hoop one time. And then once you see that happen, maybe you can actually get back on track. I said going into the actual tournament in Umag that the court conditions actually suited Rublev very well. The problem was his form was so bad I couldn't trust him. I think he's going to beat Morozin. I'm not sure if he's going to dominate, but I think if I had to go for value, I probably would lean to Rublev in straight sets. I'm not going to bet this match. I just can't trust Rublev at all right now. But it's even money for him to win in straight sets. I don't hate that. Morozin, I think, is fine. Beating Montero is a good win in straight sets. But Rublev, I thought, looked pretty good against Ugo in his first match. Wasn't dominant, but I think he was good enough. And I still think his firepower translates well to Umag. So I am going to go with Rublev to win in straight sets. Not going to bet it, though, but that will be my main lean at even money. And for the second to last match on the card, we're going to talk about a matchup between Mensik and Sang. Two guys we probably thought wouldn't be here. But Mensik is minus 180, and you see Sang at around plus 155. For the spread, you minus 2.5 for Mensik, plus 2.5 for Sang. The over-under is at 22. For the set spread, you minus 1.5 sets for Mensik at plus 150. You plus 1.5 for Sang at minus 180. Over 2.5 sets is plus 135. Now, I think it's pretty interesting to evaluate this matchup because Mensik, I think, is objectively a solid player, and he's only 18 years old. I think Mensik's going to be really, really good for a long time. You might remember that we actually liked him in the U.S. Open last year, and he won a couple rounds. So I was high on Mensik before most people were. I think he's very talented, and at 18, I think he can be really, really good. And he beat Darderi in straight sets, beat defending champion in Papyron in straight sets in the first round. He's been really solid. Darderi, I know, is young, but he's still a solid doubles. He's still a solid clay player. He's going to be doing doubles for Italy in the Olympics. But I do think you're looking at a spot where Sang had basically a flawless match. He dropped one game against Fognini. I don't really know how that happened, to be honest, but I think Sang is still a lucky loser in the event as he ended up getting killed by Andriozzi. I might have butchered that pronunciation, but he ended up losing in straight sets. And then he came out as a lucky loser and dropped one game. Before this event, he was really not in good form. Lost to Krajinovic in 3, lost to the other Berrettini in 2 sets in a retirement. Ended up losing to Ramos Vinolas in straight sets in a challenger event as he made a relatively deep run. The point is, he's not a very good clay player, and I don't know what happened on Wednesday. I think it is a pure fluke, and I think it's actually a very good sell high spot on Sang. So I actually like Mensik to win comfortably. I think that people are going to be looking at what happened yesterday and going, wow, Sang must be really good on clay. He's really not if you go through his history. And I don't know what exactly that happened with regard to Fognini, but he's also up there in years. We saw Fognini look really bad last year, and then he had some moments where he had a decent run. We might have just seen a good run for Fognini and then mentally kind of checked out. I'm not really sure. Point is, though, I think that match against Sang was just objectively weird. So weird that I might be unfairly tossing it out, but I don't really know what happened there. So I think that Sang is still not very good on clay. I think Mensik is. He ended up beating Dimitrov on clay a couple months ago. Above Sang it's because he had a parlay with Fognini on it. Always happens that way, doesn't it? But if Fognini was the second leg, it would have worked out. It's always the last leg that gets you on those parlays. I see Mel asking me about Kaboli. Bad, I don't know if bad's the right word because it was 7-6, 7-6. The match was competitive. I thought it was going to go over, so I thought that it was going to be a competitive matchup. Lajovic is always dangerous on clay. He just always is. I thought Kaboli would win, but I'm not going to say that he was awful. I just thought it was a pretty solid clay match that Kaboli was on the wrong side of. The real problem with Kaboli is that for a guy with a lot of firepower who's still very young, his serve needs to get a lot better, especially his second serve. It's just objectively not that good, and I think that that's one area Kaboli has to work on. Lajovic is going to be able to stand behind the baseline with his one-handed backhand and just outlast people, most people on tour for a long time, and he's been doing that for a long time. However, I have to point out that Kaboli should have more firepower, and the serve just wasn't cutting it. I think that's the main issue for Kaboli. I thought it was a fun match. I wouldn't say he was awful. It just felt like Kaboli eventually got worn out in these longer rallies by the consistency of Lajovic, which was actually what you're mentioning right now. He gave away a bunch of winning points. You're not wrong. It just feels like Lajovic has the veteran experience and Kaboli is still young. His shot selection could use some work. I think that's the way I'd describe Kaboli. He's going to win, I think, at least one title in the ATP level, probably more than that, but he's still working it out, and Lajovic just, I'd say, used his expertise to outlast Kaboli in a pretty fun matchup. But getting back to the actual card, give me Mensik to win in straight sets at plus 150. I'll take the sell high spot on Sang in this one. And for the last match, speaking of Lajovic, you actually have him against Musetti. Very fun matchup between one-handed backhands. Don't have many of those left on tour, but you have a fun one on, I'd say, in store at a pretty solid hour. I think it's at 3 o'clock Eastern, I think, which is a very solid time. I'll be watching that. Before the actual matchup, you have Musetti at minus 260. You have Lajovic at around plus 215. For the spread, you have minus 3.5 for Musetti, plus 3.5 for Lajovic. And for the over-under, you have 22 or 21.5. Set spread, you have Lajovic to win a set at minus 140. You have Musetti to win a set at plus 110. The over 2.5 sets is a plus 150. Now, Lajovic I thought looked good against Kaboli, which I just talked about a second ago. Musetti is 2-0 lifetime against Lajovic. Both meetings were, one of them was actually in Hamburg on clay. Both meetings were in 2022, though. Face off in Cincinnati. Musetti won in straight sets. Face off in Hamburg on clay, and Musetti did win in 3. First 2 sets also went to breakers. So Musetti, of course, we gave out to win the event. It was my favorite outright of the actual week, and so far so good. He got off to a slow start against Trungelliti. Not too shocking because he had not played on clay for about a month and change. Then he woke up and he dominated. So I thought Musetti looked good objectively after a slow start. I think Lajovic can make it interesting, though. Even though I'm picking, of course, Musetti to win because I have him to win the event, if Lajovic pulled off the upset, I would not be totally shocked. I see a very competitive match here. I like the over as well, kind of a common theme for the clay matches for Thursday, in my opinion. I see a lot of overs, and I think Lajovic has the game to have a lot of really long rallies behind the baseline with Musetti, a lot of alternating one-handed backhand. Should be very fun. I'll be watching it. Either way, though, I am going to lean to the over. I think Musetti wins, but I find it pretty telling that Lajovic to win a set is minus 140, and the over 2.5 sets is a plus 150. The math isn't mathing on that one. That feels wrong. I like the over 2.5 sets. I think plus 150 is a good price. I think you might end up seeing a marathon. It was dated 2 years ago, but the one clay meeting they had in the past in the head-to-head did go to 3 sets with 2 breakers. It was competitive. I think Lajovic is in pretty good form. So is Musetti. I don't mind the over in this one as well, with a lean to Musetti to win the match in 3. That's going to wrap it up, though, for the preview of the 8 quarterfinal matches for Thursday. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. But before we get into any of the actual picks for the episode, do want to remind you once again that we are brought to you by Rhythm, because Rhythm has a lot of great options for golf. If you ended up dominating the British Open with them, then you know about it. If not, I'm telling you, they were very good with the British Open. They also have a lot of great college football options for the upcoming season. You can customize your own betting models, and it's easy to use with Rhythm's tools. Claim your 7-day free trial by going to sportscampodcast.com, Rhythm, sportscampodcast.com/RATHMM. We're also brought to you by Circa Survivor and Circa Millions. Circa Sports is back with Circa Survivor and Circa Millions, giving away $16 million in guaranteed prizes. Imagine the regret you'll feel if you win your Office Survivor pool, but you didn't enter Circa Survivor. Don't have a trip booked yet for Las Vegas before football. Ultimate Contest Weekend's a great time to go. Hang out with Ryan and Sean and enjoy some of the open bar events at the World's Best Sportsbook from August 22nd through the 24th. Use promo code SGP15 to save 15% on your hotel room for sign-up weekend. That's a great deal. Getting 15% off any Vegas hotel room is definitely a good time. Sign up in person at Circa Sports between now and September 7th. Use a proxy to play from anywhere. We even have a deal with footballcontestproxy.com to save you $50 with promo code SGP. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished going through the matches for Thursday. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. For the lock, a reminder, my cutoff is usually around -160 or -165. This one barely made the cut. I am going to go back to Kitzbuhel, and I am going to go with the biggest favorite on the board. I am going to go with Berrettini to win in straight sets at -159. Found this on BetRivers. A couple reasons why I am going to go with Berrettini. First reason, he's won 14 straight sets. He's been phenomenal. He wins every tie break, and he's basically unbreakable. So I have a hard time picturing Moreno giving him much of a threat in this match. You could argue that maybe if it goes to a breaker, anything could happen. Weirder things have happened in breakers. But when you've won 14 straight sets and a clay title, and you just beat a top 20 guy in the second round in straight sets, I'm going to like your chances against a wild card in the 120s. And I do think that 160 or 159 in this case is a pretty good price for a guy that I think should dominate this matchup. Moreno, I mentioned it before, he is, I'd say, a member of the quarterfinals, but his path's been a joke. He faced off against 2 guys outside the top 200 in his first 2 matches, and now he's against a guy that, when healthy, is definitely a top 10 clay player in the world. Good luck. Now, let's put it that way. I think Moreno's in trouble. I think that he's probably going to lose this one, maybe without a breaker, honestly. You might end up getting like a 6-4, 6-3 type match, but Moreno, I think, is fine on clay. I think Berrettini, when he's on, is elite on clay. There's a serious talent differential here. Moreno's not a great server. Berrettini is. I think Berrettini wins here in straight sets. Give me Berrettini in straight sets at -159 as my lock. For my dog, I am going to go back to Kitzbuhel again. And I am going to go with the Diaz-Acosta and Martinez match. Give me the over 2.5 sets at +135. Been on a good run with the over 2.5 set play, so I am going to go back to it. This is available on Caesars. I mentioned before it was +120. Caesars does have better lines on the over 2.5 sets than any other book that I could find in pretty much any match. So once again, get yourself a Caesars account because they do have a lot of great prices for this market. I like the over 2.5 sets here at +135. Each of Diaz-Acosta's last 6 clay matches did not end in straight sets, and 2 of Martinez's last 4 matches did not end in straight sets as well. I see a marathon. They faced off earlier this year in February. That match did go to 3 sets as well. I see a marathon. I would lean to Martinez, but I am going to back the current trend. 6 straight, I'd say 3 setters with Diaz-Acosta on clay. Good enough for me. Make it 7. Give me the over 2.5 sets at +135. So once again, the picks for Thursday's matches. The lock's going to be on Berrettini in straight sets at -159, and the dog will be on, that's the lock. For the dog, give me Diaz-Acosta and Martinez over 2.5 sets at +135. Go back once again for the next round of Kitzbuhel and Umag for the semis there, and we'll try to fit in the quarters as well for Atlanta. Either way, though, until next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.